But I've been with you guys as we've gone to the nations, but again, and I know I say it all the time, but go. And as you go, right? As you go, your mission field could be your school, it could be your team, it could be your club, it could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be any number of people that you're around. It doesn't have to be strangers in a third world, rural, poor country. Okay? But back to what you know. Okay, y'all ready? Verse 22. So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. As even some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. Being then God's offspring, we ought not to think of that. We ought not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the art and imagination of man. The times of ignorance God overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent, because he has fixed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed. And of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. Now they heard the resurrection of the dead. Some mocked, but others said, We will hear you again about this. So Paul went on from their midst, and some of the men joined and believed, and then goes on and talks about their response to that. But here he is saying what he knows. And he almost is affirming the philosophers of this time and the people of the place, the people of Athens, saying, hey, you did a good job by recognizing that there's this God that you missed. But by the way, he's the one true God and the only God that matters. And he's not far off. In him, you live and move and have your being. He's right next to you. He's not unknown to you because he is unknowable. He's unknown to you because you've replaced him with all these other gods and all these other things. And you have set yourselves above him as God, and now you're determining, you're making out of silver and gold, and from your hands and your imagination, you're making gods. And they're insignificant. They're incapable of doing what the only one true God can do, which is create the heavens and the earth and every person in it and give him a purpose. And by the way, he's coming to judge. So now, this time for kind of entertaining this ignorance has come to an end. And basically, he's brought me, Paul, to communicate to you guys the truth so that you might be saved. Paul talks in Corinthians about, I've become all things to all people, that some might be saved. What are the things that you need to do, and what are the things that you need to say so that some might be saved? We're going to give you guys an opportunity to talk about that in small groups. We're going to give you an opportunity to consider what your mission is. What God has called you to. What God has equipped you for. And we want to give you some time to think about it, scheme about it, right? And just kind of make your plans. And God might change those plans because he ultimately is going to direct your steps. But what are the plans that you have for the future? And if you don't have a plan that includes fearlessly proclaiming the mystery of the gospel, then you should change your plans. If you don't have if your plan doesn't include loving your neighbor as yourself, then you should change your plans. And if your plan doesn't include having God in his rightful position over you, you should probably change your plans. But it's okay, because we're going to plan today. So it's okay. We'll just start over today. April 14th, 2013. This is 3rd birthday. And it's also the day that we made our new plans, okay? And God, He still might change them, right? He still might change them. We have to be ready for that. But we do need to make plans. So your leaders, your small group leaders, are going to ask you some questions. And I texted it to you guys. I sent an email, but also a text because I ran out of time to go print this morning. But we're going to ask you what your mission is. We're going to ask you who you're going to go to, and maybe who you would go with. We're going to ask where you're going to go. And we're going to ask, what are you going to say? Paul's message at the Areopagus was targeted to a group that he had learned about. Not one that he originally knew, but one that he learned about. So what do you need to know about who you're going to minister to? And then how are you going to adjust it accordingly? Right? When he went to the Jewish synagogues, which was his deal, every time he'd go into a new town, he'd go straight to the synagogue. He would sit, he would wait, and he would preach, and then he would ultimately upset some people. But he would also be a part of the saving work of God through what he was doing, what he was saying. This was a little bit different. So he would go with what he knew there, and then, but now, speaking to these Epicurean and Stoic philosophers in Athens, he had to change his message a little bit. He had to change his audience a little bit. Some of the things that he would have said in the Jewish synagogue weren't going to translate for them. So he had to learn about them. And then that dictated what he said. In the same way, again, I want to give you guys an opportunity to do that, to come up with a plan. This is very